In India, emergency is not a word that can be used lightly. In India, emergency has been used to trample freedom, liberty, and even justice. On this day, 46 years ago, radio sets crackled to life across the country. As a nation sat huddled, their attention focused on the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, their hearts ached in hope for an announcement in their favor. They were in for a big disappointment.
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है। इससे आतंकित होने का कोई कारण नहीं है।
The silence that followed was deafening. Emergency in India refers to a period of uncertainty and oppression. It began on June 25, 1975 and ended 21 months later in 1977. On paper, maybe, but in reality, did it ever end? It seems the same mindset has trickled down through the generations and remains strong within the Indian National Congress even today. Hello and welcome to New India Junction. I am Richa Divedi and this is The Bottom Line. Emergency. No fundamental rights. No more right of free speech. No right for constitutional remedies. No more free press. During this period, the then Prime Minister and her party ruled with decree. Opposition leaders across the country were arrested and frothed up. Even movies were banned. Remember, a movie called Andhi was banned simply because the protagonist resembled the then Supremo. But do you think that's a thing of the past? Do you think this behavior has ceased to exist? In January last year, Rahul Gandhi's remarks on V.D. Savarkar were criticized by the director of the Academy of Theatre Arts in Mumbai. What if I told you that just days later, NSUI leaders attempted a ghirao of the university and the director was later asked to go on a forced leave? I'm sure you haven't forgotten how the officers of a beverage company were ransacked by Congress loyalists in Mumbai just because the company had made a funny advertisement.
Worry not, mother. मैं एक ऐसी मशीन बनाऊंगा जिसमें आप यहाँ से घास डालोगे, यहाँ से दूध निकलेगा. घास, दूध.
Which makes this modern emergency mindset even more frightening. Even humor will put you in the crosshairs. Next, let's look at this clip from September last year. The man being beaten is a retired braveheart from the Indian Navy. His name is Madan Sharma and all he did was forward an image on WhatsApp. The image, of course, was of a political leader. The state? Congress-ruled Maharashtra. What's more, the local police in turn registered a complaint against the victim. Can this happen without the knowledge of the local administration? Can this happen without the state government turning a blind eye? Don't you think it seems this has always been the go-to course of action right from the emergency era, to ignore atrocities committed right in front of you? But here's what's really surprising. In 1971, the Indian Army and Navy had been pivotal in securing a victory for India. But in just 4 years, by 1975, somehow the Prime Minister had lost her trust. Today, despite the relentless efforts of our armed forces to protect the nation, this mistrust still seems to exist within the same party. Let's look at what the prevalent mindset of the Congress has been over the recent years. What have they been saying?
थल सेना अध्यक्ष एक सड़क के मतलब गुंडे की तरह अपने बयान देते हैं.
Yes, you heard that right. As recently as 2017, they had compared the Chief of Army Staff, General Bipin Rawat, to a common street thug. Just so that you're aware, let me tell you, General Bipin Rawat is today India's Chief of Defence Staff. Can this not be attributed to a pre-existing derogatory mindset? But is that all? Sadly, no. You remember the terror attack in Pulwama that left all of us shocked. You remember the 40 Jawans who were martyred, right? And here we have Rahul Gandhi asking, who benefited from the attack? What is that even supposed to mean? Here's another leader from Congress questioning India's surgical strikes against terror outfits and camps functioning across the border. A former chief minister, no less. Again, the same question erupts. Isn't this the same incident that has continued from 1975? When Indian troops bravely fought Chinese aggression in Galwan recently, and after the ultimate sacrifice managed to stop the aggressors, Mr. Gandhi had again raised questions on the army. But what about the press? Any leader would be scared of bad publicity. But in 1975, thanks to the gag order during the emergency, Indian media couldn't say a thing. But here's a headline from a July 1975 edition of the New York Times. The journalist in question is Kuldeep Nair, a senior editor with the Indian Express. He was accused of just being a part of an anti-government protest. When we move the timeline forward, let's look at Arnab Goswami and his ordeal that he suffered last year. His fault was that he had made some anti-Sonia Gandhi comments. Doesn't this send a chill down your spine? At a national scale, wouldn't this translate to another emergency, or worse, to one that never really ended? Similarly, there are reports from Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh too, reports that are proof of the same mindset, one that can't have you utter a word against those in power. The Supreme Court had intervened in the Arnab Goswami case and he was let go. But what of the innumerable other voices that were silenced in these states? It is through the judiciary that we have established a rule of law. But were they spared during Indira Gandhi's emergency? Again, no. During that 21-month period, not 1, not 10, but 16 High Court judges were transferred on the government's recommendations and without the judges' consent. This exercise saw a rerun when the Congress party headed by Sonia Gandhi decided to transfer 2 chief justices in 2013, again without their consent. But let's not take the limelight away from Rahul Gandhi, who in 2018 submitted an impeachment motion to remove the Chief Justice of India, a first in the history of our country, a stain which can never be washed away. Which brings us to the Constitution and independent institutions, like the CBI for instance. The 42nd Amendment to the Constitution, notified hurriedly during the emergency, basically formalized the rule of the Parliament over all other wings, in turn making the head of the government, in this case then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, a supreme leader of sorts. Using these new powers, she went on a vengeful spree to hurt any and all manner of political opposition. Her tools? The CBI and the police. We have seen a lot of images of political leaders in chains, of packed jails and arbitrary beatings. We have also seen the Shah Commission's report of 1977 that noted the gross misuse of power during the 21-month period. But the infamous Coalgate scandal and the government interfering with judicial proceedings in 2013 came as a shock. The overreaching government, the misuse of constitutional powers. Can you spot the similarity? Just like in 1975, appointments were still made based on personal preferences. Take the case of P.J. Thomas as the Central Vigilance Commissioner, as recently as 2011, appointed on the recommendation of a high-power committee of the UPA government. India's apex judicial authority, the Supreme Court, had to be called upon to quash the appointment. So has the emergency really ended? If yes, then why are these reminders so recent? Why do they feel like a lingering hangover from the darkest era of Indian democracy? At a time when India approaches 75 years as an independent nation, why is the apparently National Congress still attempting to curtail liberty? Almost half a century later, why are we still witnessing incidents in many Indian National Congress governed states that bear an unnatural resemblance with that 21-month period? You decide.